Welcome back. Let's take a deeper look at something that has suddenly turned into a much bigger conversation than anyone probably expected. Over the past few days, a lot of attention online has been directed toward the newly released trailer for Scary Movie 6. What started as a typical trailer drop has now turned into a full-blown debate across social media, entertainment media outlets, and even daytime television. And interestingly enough, the conversation isn't really about the horror parodies, the slapstick humor, or the absurd scenes that the franchise has always been known for. Instead, the focus has shifted to a short moment at the beginning of the trailer that references pronouns, which has triggered a wide range of reactions from both audiences and media personalities. Now, before we even talk about the reactions, it's important to understand what this franchise has always been about. The original Scary Movie films became extremely popular in the early 2000s because they were designed as full-on parody projects. They weren't meant to be serious horror movies. Instead, they took elements from well-known horror franchises like Scream, The Ring, and several other films and exaggerated them to ridiculous levels for comedic effect. But the humor didn't stop at horror movies. Those earlier films constantly referenced pop culture, celebrity scandals, political moments, and viral trends that were happening at the time. In other words, the comedy worked because it was constantly poking fun at the world around it. That style of comedy was extremely common back then. Movies that relied on satire and parody were a regular part of Hollywood's comedy lineup. But fast forward to today, and the entertainment landscape looks very different. Comedy in film has become far less dominant in theaters, and parody movies in particular have almost disappeared from the big screen. So the return of this franchise with Scary Movie 6 is already an interesting experiment on its own. Now, when the trailer started circulating online, viewers quickly noticed that one of the opening jokes referenced pronouns. Within hours, that moment began trending across various platforms, with people debating whether the joke was harmless parody or something that crossed a line. The conversation quickly made its way onto the daytime talk show The View, where several hosts shared their thoughts about the trailer. During the discussion, personalities such as Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sunny Hostin expressed concerns about the direction of comedy when it touches on sensitive cultural topics. Their perspective was essentially that humor involving gender identity and pronouns can easily become controversial because it relates to real social debates happening right now. From their viewpoint, entertainment companies should be cautious about how those subjects are presented in comedic settings. However, once that discussion aired, it didn't take long for viewers online to push back with a different interpretation. A lot of people who actually watched the trailer pointed out that the humor didn't appear to target just one specific topic. Instead, the preview seemed to include jokes aimed at multiple groups, multiple ideologies, and multiple aspects of modern culture. That observation is important because it ties directly back to the traditional formula of parody films. Historically, parody works best when it treats everything as fair game. The comedy comes from exaggerating stereotypes, poking fun at trends, and highlighting the absurdity of cultural moments. When that formula is applied consistently, the humor isn't meant to be taken as a serious attack on any one group. It's meant to reflect the chaos of the culture itself. And that's why this debate has become so interesting. It's not just about a single joke in a trailer, it's really about a larger question surrounding the role of satire in modern entertainment. Over the last decade, audiences have become much more aware of how media representations affect different communities. Because of that shift, comedy has also started evolving. Writers and filmmakers often approach certain topics with more caution than they might have 20 years ago. At the same time, there are still many fans who believe satire and parody should remain completely unrestricted. They argue that the entire point of parody is to exaggerate real-world trends and push them into absurd territory. This difference in expectations is what makes the release of Scary Movie 6 such an interesting moment for Hollywood. Because in many ways, this movie is attempting to revive a style of comedy that thrived in a completely different cultural environment. Back when the earlier films were released, audiences were used to outrageous parody humor. The genre was full of movies that didn't hold back when it came to controversial jokes or over-the-top scenarios. Some worked extremely well, while others missed the mark, but the genre itself was a big part of mainstream comedy. Today, that genre is almost absent from the theatrical space. So the big question surrounding this project isn't just whether the jokes will land. The bigger question is whether audiences still want parody movies at all. Marketing for the film seems to be leaning heavily into nostalgia for the original series while also trying to comment on current cultural debates. That's a tricky balance to strike because older fans may be expecting the same chaotic humor from the early films, while newer audiences might be evaluating the comedy through a completely different lens. Another factor worth considering is how modern internet culture amplifies every moment in a trailer. Years ago, a joke like this might have passed without much attention, but today, a single clip from a trailer can be shared thousands of times within minutes, each time accompanied by a different interpretation. And once that happens, the conversation can spiral far beyond the original context of the scene. That's exactly what seems to be happening here. Some viewers see the joke as classic parody humor. Others see it as an example of how comedy is constantly navigating social boundaries. And then there are people who simply see it as a marketing strategy designed to generate discussion before the movie even hits theaters. Because at the end of the day, controversy can also function as promotion. When a trailer sparks debate across social media and television programs, it automatically increases awareness of the film. Even people who had no idea the franchise was returning suddenly become curious enough to check out the trailer for themselves. So whether the reaction is positive or negative, the conversation itself keeps the film in the spotlight. But ultimately, the real test for Scary Movie 6 will come when audiences actually see the full movie. Trailers can only show a few minutes of footage, and parody films often rely on rapid-fire jokes that work better when experienced within the full context of the story. If the film manages to capture the chaotic, anything-goes humor that made the original series successful, it could potentially bring parody comedy back into the mainstream conversation. On the other hand, if the jokes feel outdated or inconsistent, the movie could struggle to resonate with modern audiences who have grown used to a very different style of humor. Either way, the debate happening right now proves that the return of this franchise is already generating attention across the entertainment world. And sometimes, attention alone is enough to keep a movie relevant before it even premieres. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think parody films like Scary Movie 6 still have a place in modern Hollywood, or do you think the era of over-the-top parody comedy has already passed? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into trending Hollywood stories, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more updates.